Donald Trump has opportunity to negotiate a good deal in Ukraine. Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, says that. Second topic, new Syrian authorities have refused to grant entry to a ship that was supposed to evacuate Russian military equipment from Russia's Tartus naval base in Syria. I wonder why is that. In a Blitz interview with Dr. Bruce Bennett, senior defense analyst in RAND Corporation, we talk about involvement of DPRK soldiers in Russia's war against Ukraine and the possible first prisoner swap. The incoming Trump administration will be in a position to broker a good and strong peace deal in Ukraine, provided that Kyiv agrees. Outgoing U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken sat down and explained what exactly, in his opinion, a good and strong deal means.
So I believe that the incoming administration is in a position where, if the Ukrainians so desire and so choose, it can help to negotiate a good deal. You have to have built into any ceasefire the effective deterrence necessary so that he doesn't reattack. That is, I think, a necessary part of any good, strong deal for Ukraine. Antony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State.
Trump, taking office on January 20th, has pledged to swiftly push for a peace settlement in the Russia-Ukraine war after taking office. Prompting fears he might pressure Kyiv toward painful concessions, his team signaled that the new administration would seek to preserve Ukraine's independence, though Blinken's expected successor Marco Rubio said that both Kyiv and Moscow would have to make concessions to achieve a peace deal. Since invading Ukraine in 2014 and escalating its war of aggression in 2022, Russia has occupied about 20% of Ukrainian territory, imposing repressive measures on the local population and prohibiting any expressions of Ukrainian identity. Ukraine has repeatedly said it would not recognize its territory currently under Moscow's control as Russian. Blinken noted that any potential ceasefire must be enduring and not simply a pause that will give Russian dictator Putin a chance to rest, refit, and then, when he deems the moment, just re-attack. The Secretary of State also highlighted the Biden's administration efforts to put Ukraine into strongest possible position in any potential talks, noting that Russia suffered massive battlefield losses and faces mounting economic difficulties. Well, that is all true. The Biden administration indeed ramped up its support for Ukraine since Trump's re-election, announcing several major security assistance packages, easing restrictions on long-range strikes inside Russia, and imposing sweeping sanctions on the Russian energy sector. However, there is a monumental misunderstanding in not only Blinken's, but most of Western high-profile politicians' approach to what they all think is a reason for Putin to stop this war. Blinken recently said the losses that Russia has incurred are almost unimaginable, by some assessments 700,000 to 800,000 casualties. That includes those killed and those wounded. End of quote. Well, hard truth in easy terms is Putin just couldn't care less, Mr. Blinken. How many Russians are dead in Ukraine because of his criminal affair? 800,000? A million? 2 million, maybe 5, 10 million dead Russians are okay. All good. It is all expendables and nothing more. Russia is a big country, as big as 140 million Russians. So the flock of Putin's war, both active and passive supporters, is at least 100 million. So what is it now? Less than 10% killed? Affordable. And 20 will be. And 30 will be, trust me. It will be affordable not only for Putin, but for those resting 70% of Russians remaining somewhat alive in Russia. So don't let yourself be fooled, Mr. Outgoing Secretary of American State. 800,000 killed Americans. That is unimaginable for America. But not for Russia. And it will never be a reason for Putin to stop his genocidal crusade against Ukraine. Putin won't stop unless stopped. This is why we in Ukraine are waiting so much for Trump's deal to be indeed good and strong enough to do exactly that. The new Syrian authorities have refused to grant entry to a ship that was supposed to evacuate Russian military equipment from Russia's Tartus naval base in Syria. The refusal follows the December overthrow of Russian-backed dictator Bashar al-Assad by rebel forces, marking a significant shift in Syria's political landscape. The Spouter 2, a Russian cargo ship under US sanctions, by the way, has been drifting near Tartus since January 5th after leaving Baltijsk in Kaliningrad Oblast on December 11th. Reports indicate that Russian forces have dismantled air defense radars and moved over 100 trucks of military equipment to the port, but no ships are currently docked to facilitate the evacuation, leaving personnel and equipment stranded. Without clearance from the new Syrian government, the evacuation of Russia's military assets from Tartus has stalled, according to Maritime Executive, and so far there is no clearance. The Khmeimim airbase, serviced by Russian Defense Ministry flights, reportedly remains the only active evacuation route. Ukraine's Foreign Minister, Andriy Sybiha, addressed Russia's military presence in Syria during a December 30th diplomatic visit to Damascus. According to Ukrainian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Georgy Tichy, Ukraine and the new Syrian leadership actually share similar views on the matter, though specific details were not disclosed. Well, with no details disclosed, why for us not to speculate a bit, shall we? If Ukrainian leaders and Syrian leaders share enough similar views on whether Russians should have their military bases back there, then maybe they shouldn't. And maybe just saying Ukrainian army can get into Khmeimim base instead, worth only imagine Putin's face. Mr. Bruce Bennett, senior defense analyst in RUN Corporation, we talk about involvement of DPRK soldiers in Russia's war against Ukraine and the possible exchange of the first prisoners. Well, hello, Mr. Bennett.
Hello, good to be with you.
The pleasure is all mine, as usual. First question. DPRK is gaining the actual battlefield experience. This is what is happening now. By deploying its troops to fight for Russia, and it is going to use this experience. How likely you think is a direct military conflict between North and South, after all?
Well, I think we have to first look at what kind of military experience the North Koreans are gaining. It's not very useful. They're doing massed attacks, cannon fodder type use of the North Korean troops. The pictures we've seen aren't even really good massed attacks. So I think at this stage, if I were Kim Jong-un, I would think that the Russians have betrayed him. They're not training his troops to be effective in any particular combat situation. They're instead using them as cannon fodder and wasting their use. They'll learn some things about fighting on a battlefield, a modern battlefield. But if your tactics are terrible, you don't learn very much. And so I don't think this is going to be very useful for the North Koreans. And I also worry that the North Koreans aren't going to be willing to let their troops go home and tell the elite families, who troops those are, that they've been sacrificing the lives of their posterity.
Absolutely. Well, indeed, there is not much experience in just go to Ukraine and die there. But what now? I mean, maybe there is a way that it's possible to turn South Korea into be more ally mode, turn that mode on by giving Seoul what he wants. I mean, those POVs maybe, because Seoul obviously says that it's just one nation, Koreans. These are our people, and they want them back, whatever the term back means in this case. So shall Ukraine give these POVs to South Korea or not? What do you think?
Oh, I think they should very much. I think that would be an appropriate activity. Certainly giving them back to Russia is not a great idea, because those individuals will be killed promptly because they've undoubtedly shared information with the Ukrainian authorities. Kim knows that. He's going to be furious at them. So giving them to South Korea, very smart idea. And the problem, though, now is with the political uncertainties in South Korea. It's not clear how you make South Korea closer to Ukraine and support Ukraine. But certainly starting with these soldiers would be a good start.
Absolutely. I'm sorry for pushing you to that answer, but this is the exact answer I wanted, actually, for myself and for my audience, because they asked me questions from time to time. So you've mentioned that Kim Jong-un is more or less betrayed by Russia. How exactly? Do you think he cares about the cannon fodder?
Oh, I think he was anxious for his troops to learn about the
Right,
modern
right.
battlefield, to develop new tactics. I mean,
Hmm.
you go back to the Cold War, the Russians, the Soviets had some very interesting tactics that they potentially planned to use against NATO. The Russians haven't figured those out yet for the modern battlefield in Ukraine. You look that they've learned that all of their World War II experience of massing isn't working in an environment with drones and with
Yeah, here
all
we go.
kinds of means
Right.
of fire.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100 years after they were almost 100 years. So why not to look at that? But
Yeah.
I have another question. Ministry of Unification in South Korea that won these people, these individuals back. What is that even? What is the Ministry of Unification? What do they do? Is that
Well, there are
intelligence?
several. No, no.
Hmm.
There are several parts of the Ukrainian of the South Korean constitution that identify unification as a requirement for North and South Korea. And so the Ministry of Unification is one of the mandated organizations that tries to work on plans for unification, how it would be done. And this is no easy task.
Oh, yeah,
If you face
absolutely.
lots of special forces and other
That is
soldiers
true.
that would be in the country, you've got to make some kind of stabilization plan. You've got to have some concept of winning the elites over. And that's in theory what they're supposed to be doing.
Right. Well, let's talk about Western elites. Well, my impression is that no one in the big politics is actually concerned enough about DPRK troops fighting for Moscow, as no one actually believes North Korea is strong enough militarily and economically. Am I right?
Well, I think there's a certain element of that, but I think it's also the case that the number of troops being sent is not very large,
No, that's true.
that Kim is probably not very serious. If he was, he would have already sent replacement troops, given how many losses they've suffered. So it's not clear that this is other than a kind of token deployment to demonstrate that Kim supports the mutual defense agreement. Yeah, note, Kim didn't send troops that went to occupied Ukrainian territory so
That
much.
is,
They went to Kursk. And what lessons are they learning? They're learning a whole lot more about the use of ballistic missiles to hurt the nation. And I think that's the kind of lesson that Kim wants. That's how he would want to fight against South Korea, by killing civilians, by
right,
destroying
right.
civil infrastructure. So these soldiers may not be all that important to Kim's planning.
I'm not sure what is important to Kim after all, but what is important to me is sometimes when I think that what is actually going on, Mr. I, you know, Ukrainian army is taking as a prisoners North Koreans in Russian Kursk fighting for Moscow because of its criminal invasion of Ukraine. I mean, this is the unbelievable, if I would say that 3 or 4 years ago to any of Hollywood producers, to let's do a movie like that, I would say that I'm crazy, but I'm not. I'm just a host on the UATV English that actually thanks you so very much, Mr. Bennett, for your time and for your expertise. As usual, I would love to speak more about North Koreans, by the way. You have to promise me that.
Happy to do that. It's your
Thank
pleasure.
you so very much. Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Well, that will be all for today. Thank you so very much for your precious time with us. My name is Henry Keane, and we are, yes, UATV English and English-speaking Ukrainian state media, doing our best to deliver the hard truth in easy terms for you, for the whole free world, directly from Ukraine. Please don't shy out to like, share, and comment. Your voice matters, and it helps Ukrainian voice to be heard globally. Indeed, stay safe, and see you on Sunday with a weekly episode. Goodbye.